On America Can We Talk, I talk about election integrity, border security, healthcare freedom, race relations, energy and tax policy, education policy, free speech and assembly, freedom of religion, and all other issues that touch on the God-given right of every American to life, liberty, and the pursuit of their version of happiness. Stay tuned.
You preach your tolerance, but lecture me. Is there no end to your own hypocrisy? Your God is power, you have no shame. Your only interest is political gain. You hide your eyes and refuse to listen. You play your game.
Coming up next, America Can We Talk with your host, Debbie-Georgatos.
And hello and welcome to America Can We Talk. I'm Debbie-Georgatos. This has been a very strange year. I've done this show for 12 years. America Can We Talk, I've hosted for 12 years. And this year has been the most intermittent, just super busy with big projects I took on, including our Texas Freedom Summit and including our, and then getting involved with the convention, the RPT convention. So it's just great to be back in studio. And this is a show, I just want to share some things with you about what I've been doing, and I think how important this anniversary of America is, America 250, just a profoundly consequential, important celebration that America is facing. So I'm Debbie-Georgatos. The show is America Can We Talk. What we're going to talk about is leftists exposed by World Cup happiness, falling in love with America again, Japanese style. I can't wait to tell you that story. And Rupert Lowe, MP in Britain, Rupert Lowe exposed, today released his rape gang inquiry. And I want to talk about that as it ties to what's happening in America as well. But to start with, and happy news, obviously many Americans are following the World Cup. And here in the great state of Texas, I will just tell you, as a personal family aside, we have guests joining us in our home in a couple of days. We're here from Israel, and they're actually here for a variety of reasons, business reasons, and just because they're engaged in businesses here. But they're also going to be going to some of the World Cup games. And, I honestly didn't really follow soccer growing up, but it is a huge deal. And part of what I wanted to say, how this ties into this political show, America Can We Talk, is this. So many people from so many countries are coming to America, obviously to watch their own families, own countries' teams, but just to watch the World Cup, to visit America. And there has just been tremendous upbeat, positive enthusiasm. A lot really is just about recognizing America's greatness. And before I play some clips for you to show you this enthusiasm, the reason this is really a political show is it's really a political topic, or a good topic for this political show, is the left in this country. And by the left, I mean the Democrat Party, the Marxists, the socialists, the media, the grievance industry, many of the bureaucracies in Washington, D.C., they thrive on the oxygen that keeps them alive is griping, insulting, just knocking America, trying to instill division and resentment among Americans toward other Americans, trying to convince young Americans that, this is a terrible country and you're so beleaguered to live here. It's just so unfair you have to live here. And this is how the left functions. They just cultivate. It is their purpose in life is to cultivate resentment and greed and anger and division. That is what the Democrat, socialists, communists, Marxists, media, so much of it does. Focus on, no matter how great America is, find something bad to talk about and embellish it and try to convince the world and America's young people that America is just a terrible place. So I want to share with you, the World Cup has brought people to America. Some of them came just to watch a few games, but they are driving around America. So a couple of clips are available I want to share with you just to show the enthusiasm, the happiness, and how people visiting America are so impressed. And not just because we have big stadiums, although that's one thing. It's having big stadiums. It's having happy people who help them, who are friendly. It's the abundance we have here. So before I spoil the whole thing, I'll play a couple of these clips. But this is really a significant political story in this year of America 250, because I hope for many people they have their eyes open more and more to recognize that the oxygen that keeps the Democrat Party alive is sowing division and belief in racial hatred, racial division in the minds and hearts of American people. If Americans can step back and appreciate America's greatness and goodness and the goodness of the American people, the Democrats have nowhere to go. So with that, I'll play clip 1, please, Mackenzie.
I'm in awe of the United States of America.
I'm in America. When they say everything in America is big, I understand it. Why the hell is this quesadilla the size of my head? And I've got 3 of them.
Americans, you are so lucky.
Whoa. And you take your fingers and you lift that up and you eat it. Okay. Not with a fork.
Nothing comes close to the USA.
Chick-fil-A for the first time as a family.
So good. Dang.
Women walking alone with fancy handbags, jewelry on, glasses on. They're not being harassed, nothing. If they were South Africa, gosh, first of all, I wouldn't be able to walk through this bloomin' park by myself.
Everything just big, ginormous, extra large.
Oh my God.
Give it again. I'm talking about that chicken is delicious.
Better than KFC.
Oh,
I'm saying so.
I'm saying it's better than KFC. It's good. It's good.
They have Bible verses on the bottom of their cup. Never. I just feel like you're so lucky to live here.
Everything in the US simply beats anything I've ever experienced anywhere in the world.
God bless America.
This place is freaking awesome. You can't make this up. This is too wonderful. All glory goes to God for preserving this wonderful country.
Okay, that's one video. Another one coming up in just a moment. But I really want to try to drive home this point. I'm smiling thinking about it because for many years, I've been doing the show for 12 years, I've tried to make the point over and over to recognize what the agenda of mainstream media, journalists, the Democrat Party, the Marxists, the Socialists, the Communists, the left-wing agitators, is to plant the seeds in the minds of uninformed Americans, easily manipulable Americans, into thinking this is a terrible country, a country that is just full of hatred and division and poverty and depression, and just it causes people to engage in riots when none are justified. It causes them to be in just an anti-American mindset that is so preposterous. And this presence of the World Cup going on here has just caused people around the world to recognize America is a wonderful place. And among the many, many videos that are out there, maybe you're watching this as well on social media, but among the many videos out there are people just recognizing how friendly America is, that when they're looking for something, people help them, they're nice, how big it is. Some of them have been driving around the country and just marveling at this beautiful country we have. And this goes really deeply to the heart of the reason for this show. I call the show America Can We Talk? I always say it's to explain, to celebrate, to spread understanding of America's unique and extraordinary greatness. America's not great just because we have, big quesadillas or because we have many restaurants, but the abundance of food and the diversity of kinds of food and the whole upbeat American character that we take for granted. We almost don't see it because it's right in front of us. These people, these from countries all over the world come here, they are seeing for the first time, America's a great country. What are these young people, in fact, you likely know that among younger people in this country, at least some segment, they're actually agitating for socialism, thinking we've got to change America, it's a bad place. They have no idea, no perspective, no idea what they're talking about. So here you go. There's one more clip, and this is another made up of just a few reports being made. I had to cut this one short. By news reporters, television reporters in other countries saying, look, my gosh, look what's going on in America. Look how great this country is. If you have that clip too, please.
The city country is just so welcoming. The people are amazing. I'm Elena Condi, journalist from Cadena Cope, radio station from Spain. I'm excited to be here in Chattanooga. It's very cozy, it's very nice, very beautiful, and the people, they are really nice, really beautiful. They embrace you, so I think that I'm gonna come back to Chattanooga after this World Cup.
Okay, as I say, you could have played a much longer stream. Reporters in other countries who are covering either the World Cup itself or covering what people are saying about it. They're just, honestly, I feel like, in America, this year of America 250, the celebration of America's 250th birthday, is such a great year. It's a great year to remind ourselves just how great and unique and extraordinary and wonderful this country is. And so that was just the intro of the show today, just to point out that when people come here and they actually see it themselves versus seeing it through the lens of left-wing media, which is most media in the world, they realize it's a great country. And I will kind of segue into something I didn't tell. That was Mackenzie, my happy producer. I didn't mention I was going to talk about. I do want to talk about a little later about an event I co-hosted last night that was about celebrating America 250. It was a really profound event, which I'll get to in a moment. But the next thing but one thing that happened at the tail end of this event, so last night there was a big event in Dallas, and I was honored to be asked to co-host it, actually with my RNC counterpart, who's Dr. Robin Armstrong. So I'm the RNC committee woman for Texas. He's a committee man for Texas, where we speak together and we collaborate on things. In any case, we were asked to co-host this event last night, and it was really about celebrating the deep meaning of America. And so they had, we gave commentary and shared information, and then they had speakers. And, it was a room of over 300 people. And the whole field, they had a contest for who was dressed most patriotically, which maybe explains some of the ways some of the people dressed. I don't have pictures. I don't have any pictures yet from it, but people came in these just happy outfits, and you're looking around the room and thinking and looking at these people who, some of them just had regular casual clothes on. Some came in suit. The men were in suits, and some people were in just kind of flagged colored outfits. But you looked around the room, you realize this country is full of people who love America, full of people who love America, and full of people who know America's greatness, who are not duped by the endless just outpouring of negativity and criticism that comes from the Democrat Party. It's the only way they get votes, is making people feel dissatisfied and angry over something. Only way they can do it. So anyway, this event was wonderful, and Robin Armstrong, Dr. Robin Armstrong, who is my co-host, he and his family, his wife, and then they have 4 boys, but 2 of them, the boys, had joined their parents on a trip to Japan. They were just back a couple days before this event last night. So one thing that Dr. Robin Armstrong was sharing was in Japan, while they were touring, and I don't know what place they went, but they went a lot of touring. They rode the subway there, and they toured all over the place. He's talking about how in Japan, there's no litter. Like, people don't litter. There's not graffiti. People don't write graffiti. They don't destroy buildings. They don't make ugly paintings and deface buildings. That there's a sense in Japan that people love their country. And I know I've talked about this point many times about what defines America, but back to Japan for a moment. Among the things that defines the Japanese culture is pride in their country. They wouldn't think of, in the same way you wouldn't think of, painting graffiti in the front of your house. They won't paint graffiti anywhere, because they love their country. They feel part of their country. And there is, of course, in Japan, a common ethnicity, the Japanese ethnicity, which can be humanly bonding. You think, well, yeah, they may feel this is our country, it's the country of Japan for Japanese people. So they have a kind of unity just because of common ethnicity, common national origin. And that's great. I mean, it's a great thing, but the pride in their country extends to how they conduct themselves in daily life. They keep it clean. They don't litter. They don't draw graffiti everywhere. So that mindset actually showed up at the World Cup. So I don't know if you saw this whole story, but and I didn't get pictures of it, but they're fabulous pictures. But at the World Cup, there was a game between Japan and I think the Netherlands. I have no notes today. I had a really busy day, and so I don't have my notes in front of me. I was going to have. I think that Japan was playing the Netherlands. I think it was out 2-2. They was a tie. They let them tie, which is amazing. Anyway. So the game is over, and all of you, I'm thinking you've probably been to professional sporting events and football and baseball games, whatever it is you go to, and often you get up and you see there's litter in the stands. I mean, literally, people will eat their popcorn or whatever they're eating and drop the wrapper on the floor, or their cups, if they've gotten something to drink, leave their cup on the floor. And this is disrespectful. It is not keeping your country clean. But the point I'm telling you this is, after the game between Japan and the Netherlands, where they tied, there were cameramen still there, and they began videoing the Japanese audience members, the people sitting in the audience watching the game, who literally cleaned up the stadium. They walked around and picked up trash. They had big trash bags. They picked up trash. And one person who stopped and said, basically a reporter, what are you doing? They said, this is our culture. This is our culture. Of course we keep things clean. And just that idea, keeping clean and neat and not littering is a piece of it. It's a wonderful piece of it. But the reason that they engage in that, they have that habit, is because they love their country and they love representing their country. They're here in America for the World Cup and they're representing their country. So last night at the close of this, really, I thought it was a profound and just deeply thoughtful meeting that I was blessed to co-host. 300 people there and different speakers and different topics. They had a judge speak about the judicial system. They had the mayor of the town where this was speak just about America's history. A lot of it was about America's history, and the slides and information that Dr. Robin Armstrong and I presented had a lot about the founders, what they had to say. But the close of it, one thing that Robin Armstrong said to the audience was, we should use this chance of America 250 to fall in love with America again. I thought that was a really I don't know what's the right word, a really moving way to say it and a really specific thing to say. You know that feeling when you're falling in love, whether it's with the love of your life or, with your new flavor of pizza, whatever it is, you're falling in love with, you're like, oh my gosh, I so appreciate this. And how you fall in love with your husband, your wife, you so appreciate them. That idea of thinking in those terms, falling in love with America. It's a great idea, and it's a great idea, as I've been trying to do on this show, and in our Substacks, and in my public speaking, to say, we have so much in this country to be deeply grateful for, and we take it for granted on many, many levels, on all sorts of topics, because it's kind of always been this way. I mean, we hear the left endlessly complaining pretty much about nothing, or just preposterous marches and protests mostly over lies. But in any case, this idea of fall in love with your country again, enough to revere it, enough to honor it, enough to speak well of it, enough to not, spend time looking for something that isn't right. And there are things. America will always progress, will always improve. We're not perfect. We were not perfect when we were founded. We're not perfect today. But America's trajectory has always been up, has always been improving our culture, our life, our society, our prosperity, our opportunity, our country. That's what America is. And for us as citizens, as patriots living in America 250 time, to be really just filled with the energy and the idea that I want to be part of falling in love with America again, celebrating America, being showing the America, showing the world what America is. And so we don't foster, we don't, not just litter. Of course, I hope no one ever litters. It's so preposterous, but we don't litter. But on top of that, we have a mental, moral defense of our country. We're proud of our country and who we are, which ties into something else I didn't tell Mackenzie, my very happy, wonderful producer, what I want to talk about today. I'm just going to briefly mention this story. At the White House, there was President Trump decided to host I don't even know the names of these things, like a UFC fight, but basically, in celebration of many, many things we're doing in Washington, D.C., there was a fight held, a organized professional event fight hosted at the White House. And there were so many people, just out of their minds, and this is degrading the White House, this is terrible. People, somehow, when the left in this country, when he who wasn't really running the country anyway because he wasn't mentally sentient, Joe Biden, sitting in the Oval Office, or wherever he was in the White House, when they hosted transgender people, jumping around and men dressed like women and dancing in front of children and engaged in just grotesque, dances and movements, and men dressed as women, and this is the most perverse, sick, distasteful conduct. Somehow, when that was being hosted on the White House grounds, when that was being encouraged by the then President Biden and Kamala Harris, the media thought, well, yeah, there you go, that's what they do. But just think about, the White House. It is a representation of America to the world. If you ask most people in the world if they know of something in America, they probably know the White House, they probably know the Washington Monument, they might know, I don't know, Grand Canyon, they might know some different things. But the White House is the people's house, and to sully it with the grotesqueness of, transgender dancers twerking around and think somehow, yeah, this is honoring American society. No, it's not, and it wasn't. But the idea, I'm not into UFC myself, I'm not like a fighter person, but I can see, because part of what's being celebrated is a return to the idea of America as strong. The last thing the anti-American left in this country wants is for America to revere itself, love itself, represent manliness and strength and men and femininity and women being moms, being females. The left has worked so hard to break down. They're not just randomly assigned at birth gender roles. They're trying to break down identity, trying to break down manliness and masculinity, which we need for men to be men and women to be, you can be strong and intelligent and successful and hardworking and a leader, but femininity can still be part of it, an intelligent femininity. And femininity recognizes, I'm not actually trying to be a guy, I'm good with being a woman. Getting back, it may sound like I'm rambling, but getting back to the idea that at the White House, this UFC fight drove the left nuts, in large part, in my opinion, because it was reminding people that it's okay to be manly, that we actually celebrate strength and manliness, and that we think that's part of being the American identity, that we are a country that we lead the world, that we are strong. And so to have that fight there, I just thought it was part of the many ways in which the Trump administration is returning America to its greatness and symbolizing to the world what our greatness is. And segueing or tied on to that, I was going to mention also, I know I talked about it sometime on a recent show, but the idea that President Trump is encountering opposition and complaints because he's engaged in a beautification, basically, of Washington, D.C., other cities too, but Washington, D.C., and so he is having the reflecting pool actually reflect the Washington Monument and be clean so that reflection can occur. The water's not full of garbage. And to have cleaning up statues, and these statues are symbols of American history, America's greatness, of different eras of America's history. These are actions not just like, keep your room clean, keep your house clean. These are actions showing that we have pride in America. That's another thing the leftists cannot abide, if the American people have pride in their country. Because what the left is trying to do is break down our belief in our country, break down our belief in America's greatness and what we stand for and why we are who we are. the left works very hard to make sure that isn't the case, that we don't think America is great, that we are denigrating America. So this is, to me, what President Trump is doing, cleaning up Washington and pushing out the idea of we're not going to have a crime-ridden city in Washington, D.C. We're not going to have a city that's full of, is dangerous to walk for foreign visitors, people who have, come to America to visit or here because they're part of some consulate or embassy or ambassadorship. People coming here to be in America, our capital city should be safe. So we're actually going to arrest people who engage in violent or threatening conduct, and we're not going to let them out 30 seconds later. We're going to clean the city up, and this has blessed, because I told you I was in Washington, D.C. a couple times recently. It's different, it's better, and you can feel it when you go there. There's a new respect for the idea that this is our capital city, and it's supposed to represent and look like and be like America. So I'm just, this whole, with the Japanese people the people from Japan who came to watch this World Cup game, cleaning up the stadium afterward, that is like symbolic of we're leaving this place better than we found it. We're leaving it clean. So I think all of that. These are symbols of what it means to have Americans proud of America, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So I'll tell you one last thing, and then we'll turn to another story, which is a very serious and unfortunate and sad story. But I do want to talk about today that the UK, Rupert Lowe, God bless that man, Rupert Lowe, MP in the UK, released his report on the rape gang crisis, a long, long awaited report, and play a little bit of him and talk about that. But before we do, I want to tell you about two things. The event last night, I mentioned, this is just a club of people who said, we want to do something special for America and in honor of America 250. And wherever you are, you still have time to plan something like that. You still have time to plan an event in your home, on your street, in your neighborhood, in your community, in your church that says, we're going to honor America like we've never done before, because in this year of America's 250th birthday, the focus is how and why has America lasted so long? How has it continued to be so great? How has it become the single superpower of the world? How has it become the land of opportunity? How has it become the greatness, the leader, the symbol to the world of freedom? And look at the qualities that were woven into the Declaration of Independence and what was then later built into the Constitution, and how we took those declaration ideas and made a country out of it. Pondering those things is really, really important, really important. Now, I may regret what I'm about to tell you, but I will tell you something. So my husband and I have had in our home many years, we have a gathering around July 4th, not on July 4th, but ahead of time, where we just bring in a small group of friends, and every year we do readings. We have a little packet my husband puts together and he edits every year. It's a packet that just has really profound statements from the founders of this country, what they said and wrote and thought about the Declaration, the Constitution, as well as other stellar leaders throughout America's history. We actually have FDR in there, we have Dwight Eisenhower, we have Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan, and we read those one at a time. Different people take turns reading, and we talk about what it means. And I'm telling you, when people leave our house after this event, we give them all the copies of the one that we used that year, and they leave thinking, I didn't even realize all these great things about America, and not just events that occurred, but the ideas behind America. And so I will tell you, what I might regret saying is, if you email me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com, I will send you those readings. You need to put, please send readings in the subject line, and send it to my email address, americacanwetalk@gmail.com. I will send them to you. And the reason is, I hope you will use them. You still have time to plan this before July 4th comes in your community or something like that. Or read them yourselves. Read them with your spouse and your kids. Read them in any context, because they do. The biggest thing about America 250 is actually appreciating what America is. That's the most important thing at all. I mean, I love fireworks. I'm kind of a nutcase about fireworks. I love fireworks. But more important than fireworks is really appreciating what America is. So I'd love to share those with you if you're interested, so I can email them to you. So last topic. No, I'm getting one more topic. We just had a Republican state convention in Houston this past week. So in the great state of Texas, the Republican Party has a convention every other year. And so we just had our 2026 convention, and I want to mention it for a couple of reasons. One is that you can read media or especially mainstream media, left-wing media, and you can think that the country's full of people who don't love the country or don't care enough or don't aren't in the frame of mind of celebrating America. But you go to this Republican state convention, and it may be true in the conventions you go to in your state. If your Republican Party has a convention every other year or whenever they have it, what you find is a room full of people. I think we had 4,200 people there, delegates. I mean, you have to become a delegate anyone can go, but to participate in the proceedings and vote on things. But it was a room full of people in Texas who are willing to work on issues, to talk together about really important issues, to debate them, to recognize, wow, this guy has been a friend of mine for years, but I don't agree with him on this, but I do agree with him on that. We had, so we ran through at this convention, we had some elections for party positions, and then we also had a discussion of the platform, which is what our state says the Republican Party stands for, and legislative priorities, which the Republican Party of Texas shares with the legislature. And I found, actually, I had another fellow member of the RNC, not from Texas, who came to our convention, and she was telling me in her state that the Republican Party does not put together legislative priorities. And I don't know how many states do or don't do that, but if you're an activist Republican, it's a great idea because it involves the people who are on what we call it here is the State Republican Executive Committee, SREC, but they are elected by people within their state senatorial district, and they come together and they come up with a list of our top priorities, what we want and hope the legislature will do in the next legislative session. So I'm getting at, what I always talk about, and I've talked about this for I don't even know how many years, how profound it was to think how America got founded, because you had people in what we now call New England, but people who'd come over to America who were still subject to King George, and you had conversations in town halls and churches and homes all over what the then portion of the country that was settled, New England and the East Coast. Conversations about whether man has rights to live in freedom and whether we had the right as people living here to overthrow King George, to start with, to demand that we be treated fairly, that we have representation if we're going to have taxation. We had profound and deep debates historically in America about God-given freedom and what that means and how does that take shape and how do you honor God-given freedom of the individual and still have a government. And we had debates about religious freedom and just all sorts of things. That idea of the robust exchange of ideas, the First Amendment protected, when we finally got around to the Constitution, we protected that. And that can seem like something that happened way back then, 250 years ago, but it's actually still happening today, at least at our Republican convention. And frankly, it should be happening in the legislatures of this country between Republicans and Democrats. It should be happening on the Democrat side, but the ability to listen to each other, to debate ideas, to say, I don't agree with you, but I understand your position. These are the kind of things that they are not only happening in America, but they are in America a unique part, a unique fabric of America concept that we actually are allowed to have our own think on our own, debate, share ideas. All that was happening. So that was last week in the state of Texas Republican Party convention. One other thing to tell you about that, and then we're going to turn, two other things. The last thing I want to tell you is what happened in the UK, having a report released. But what I want to tell you about it was, so in this Republican state convention, we, among other things, chose our Republican Party chairman. So this chairman's seat is up every 2 years, and people go, and sometimes the chairman's reelected, sometimes he or she doesn't run again, sometimes they have challengers. Well, this year we had a new Republican chair chosen by the delegates, and her name is Dorinda Randall, and her first name is D''R''I''N''D''A, Dorinda Randall. She was elected by the delegates as the new chair of the Republican Party of Texas. And she's going to join us today because what we do, this is a unique, usually we do on the first Tuesday of the month, we do RNC reports. Dr. Robin Armstrong joins me, and then the second hour, at 4 o'clock, we do a statewide call. And we have a guest on. But today, even though it's not the first Tuesday of the month, we are going to have a statewide grassroots call, and Dorinda Randall is going to join us, new chair of the Republican Party of Texas, going to join us. The way you get on that call is to go to meetn.com/Debbie, D-E-B-B-I-E-G. So it's meetin.com/Debbie-G. It starts right after the show's over. It starts at 4 o'clock. And at that meeting, we're going to be able to talk to Dorinda Randall, listen to her thoughts about everything. People actually, we have an email list we send out. We send out invitations to join the show, and so this time many people wrote in, and when we send the invitation out, we say you can put questions. Lots of people put in questions. Love to have your questions. Even when if you're on the meet and call, you're muted, but there's a chat function on the side. You can type in your questions. I want the Republicans in Texas to get to know Dorinda Randall a little bit because she's going to be the new chair at least for the next couple of years. She was elected along with the vice chair is David Covey, C-O-V-E-Y, Covey. He is not on the call today. We'll have him another time. But in any case, today's Dorinda Randall. You're welcome to join us. We'd love to have you. And I've said many times in the show that America's, unique and extraordinary greatness includes the idea of actual individual freedom and actual freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of association, the capacity, the ability to exchange ideas and listen to each other. And that on many levels is being shut down by the censorship industry, not just on the Democrat side either, not just the Democrats, but there is a censorship movement. I don't have time to get into it today, but I will be. But the idea of pushing back against censorship by the social media companies, by in a variety of ways by the government is really important because America is rooted in this idea of the free exchange of ideas. So join us on Meeting with Dorinda Randall. Last topic, and this is a very serious topic, but I've talked on this is changing to my last topic, which has to do with the release in the UK, Rupert Lowe rape gang inquiry released. So leave that up there, please, that caption. I want to tell you that Rupert Lowe is a member of Parliament and in UK, in England, and he has been leading the charge to say we in the UK have got to come to grips, come to honesty, come to talking in reality about what has happened in the UK with a massive influx of Islamic immigrants, in many cases overwhelming the population of various towns and cities in the UK. We actually were talking to someone who was telling us how in their community now, there are only 3 kids in the public school where their kids go who are British native. All the rest are Islamic immigrants. And what I'm telling you is, I am the first to say that I think it's important to never judge people based on race, ethnicity, national origin, skin color. Those are really, really important core American ideas, that we do not judge people based on race, ethnicity, national origin, or skin color. However, there are ideologies that are dangerous to and contrary to and just incompatible permanently with America's system of governance. And one of those systems of governance incompatible, an ideology incompatible with Western civilization is Sharia, Islamic law, and in many cases, the culture that comes along within Islamic communities emigrating to Western countries from third world countries or countries where Islam is the dominant ideology and Sharia is part of the law. So you've probably heard me talk about this many times, but in the UK, what happened was largely due to pressure from the EU, the European Union, but masses and masses of Islamic immigrants moved to England, and part of what's happened there, they had a gigantic rape crisis. And this is stemming from, within the teachings of Islam, the writings of Muhammad, or the teachings attributed to Muhammad. He didn't write anything, but within the Quran and Sharia, which is made up of the Quran, the Hadith, the sayings and actions of Muhammad, it's a common teaching. You can find videos all over the internet, all over X today, that will tell you the teaching of Muhammad was that rape was okay as long as the victim was not Muslim. Like non-Muslim girls and non-Muslim women could be raped without violating Islamic law. Now, I am not saying that every Muslim engages in this conduct or believes in this conduct or supports that ruling. I am saying it is core to Islam, and especially in Muslim-majority countries where Sharia is the only thing people grow up knowing. They don't grow up with a sense of Western civilization, all men created equal, endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights. They don't grow up with that mindset. So what happened in the UK, they had large influx of Islamic immigrants settled into what has commonly become no-go zones, and in those no-go zones, they had it was all Islamic immigrants, and they were following Sharia, Islamic law, instead of, or in defiance of, following the law of the land in the UK. What began happening was first the cultivation of gangs. These were grooming, using the term grooming gangs. It was people who, Islamic immigration coming into the UK and banding together these young men, working to groom, that was to mold and shape and flatter and kind of bring along young British girls, people who were natural British citizens, and there began to be a rape crisis. And I'm not talking about just in pocketed areas. I'm not talking about just a few. This had been going on for a very long time in the UK, compounded by the fact that because the large influx of Islamic immigration included this pushing by many individuals who were leaders or spokesmen for the Islamic community, pushing for acceptance of Sharia, pushing for accommodation, pushing for essentially the idea of the slow rolling takeover of the UK by Sharia and by Islam, and included bullying of the local police forces, bullying of members of the parliament, bullying of local governments. So basically what happened was, in various areas of the UK over the last, it's at least 20 years, I think even longer, this was, girls were, grooming gangs were bringing them along. The girls were raped repeatedly. Young girls, young British girls, raped repeatedly, and many, many unspeakably grotesque things happening to them at the hands of these Islamic immigrants. And police, part of the big report that's come out, and what was released today, this is released by Rupert Lowe, was a large, is a rape gang inquiry that was released, and I want to just tell you some of the things that were in there, what he's trying to talk about. So it's a 212-page report, and after an 18-month investigation of Muslim rape gangs in the UK perpetrated against young white British girls, he talked about systemic raping of British preteen and teenage girls. And by the way, a liberal, meaning like a Democrat in America, a liberal member of parliament has said the number of British girls victimized by this is about 1 million. Young, underage girls became victims, and part of what they were victims of wasn't just the conduct of these rape gangs, it was the conduct of the police in their area, the government officials in their area who refused to listen to or to help the girls and their families. And so this is part of the report, and part of what the stories have been coming out leading up to this was you had police who did not want to be called Islamophobic, did not want to be attacked by the Islamic community, so they turned the other way. They just wouldn't look at it. They weren't arresting these men. They weren't investigating. When the girls were complaining about what was occurring, they were arrested for whatever knows. Prostitution was one charge against them. This sounds like stuff that would have happened literally 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago in some dark, non-Western civilization country, but it was happening in the UK and still is right now. And the reason I'm sharing this is because there is in Texas, as I've talked about in the show, a movement toward banning Sharia. In fact, I know if you listen to the show very often, you already know there was a proposition on the GOP ballot in March of this year. We had, we voted in a primary in March, and then we had ballot propositions. Proposition 10 said Texas should prohibit Sharia law. And part of what we're doing right now as a party, as a political party, and as a culture, a civilization, is to figure out how do you implement that in America? How do you can't just say no Sharia law. You've got to find specific ways to get at it. But this is I'm telling you about this. First of all, I urge you to read the article it's on, it's many places. If you just look up Rupert Lowe, that he has released his 212-page report about the rape gang inquiry in the UK, and it's naming names. It's talking about, these officials knew about something, they turned their back, they're afraid of being called Islamophobic, they're afraid of being attacked, and we've had on this show months ago now, a man who lives in the UK, who is a former Pakistani Muslim, but born and grew up in the UK, converted to Christianity, and he has to live in hiding because of the aspect of Sharia called apostasy, which says you're not allowed to leave the religion. One of the core tenets, why I tell you Sharia cannot exist in America, a core tenet of Sharia is that you can never leave the faith. Never. You're not allowed. If you're born into Islam, if you convert to Islam, if you ever try to leave it, they will kill you. And there are 11 countries in the world where that's still the law of the country. That's actual law. If you try to leave Islam, you get put to death. On top of that, there are, outside of just actual formal laws, it's the conduct, the enforcement by all sorts of communities filled with people who've never had any exposure to anything like Western civilization freedom, who thinks the whole world functions under Sharia. That is what became so problematic in England, so pervasive, and to the point that, and this is another thing that became very problematic there, to the point that candidates, even alleged conservatives, candidates when they're running for office, they're calculating, I need the Islamic vote. I need the Muslim vote. So I'm not going to say anything about this. The whole facilitation of just the conquering, the crushing of UK society, the absolute crushing of their freedoms, just destroying the lives of these young girls, destroying the families' lives, parents getting arrested for speaking up about it, people arrested if you say anything that might offend someone who's living in the UK who follows Islam, anything that they might find offensive. This is called civilization jihad or cultural jihad. UK has slowly capitulated to that. So Rupert Lowe, God bless that man, very, very brave man, a guy who just said, I'm going to do the investigation, I'm going to finish the investigation, I'm going to put the report out there, because it's really important to understand not just that it was terrible in the UK, and by the way, they haven't begun to solve this, not begun to solve it. I guess it's a baby step. They put their report out, they did the investigation, but what I'm describing to you, the grooming gangs and the systemic rape by Muslim immigrants of young British girls goes on and goes on and goes on. And so in America, when people are concerned about people coming to America who believe in Sharia, when they say they do or don't believe in Sharia, number one, we don't know what they really believe, because we have no way of knowing that. And number two, Sharia is a broad topic. You can believe in, and some people are saying, well, we just believe in the Sharia. It's kind of like saying your prayers before bedtime. It's really, just a peaceful affirmation of your faith or something like that. But Sharia is a totalitarian violent, barbaric set of laws that is being pushed in Western civilization countries all across Europe, and it's coming to America. And this is why people are concerned. It's not saying, I am not saying, that every Muslim who would adhere to this. I think actually, I actually have Muslim friends who said they despise this. They came here to get away from it. They don't want anything to do with it. There are people like that in America. But our job in America, our generation of patriots, our time we live in, is to defend the Western civilization values, the Christian values that formed America, the Western civilization values that were expressed in the Declaration of Independence, carried forth in the Constitution. Our job is to defend that entire structure of society. Western civilization is very, very, very different from Islamic culture. And it's okay for us to defend Western civilization and to say to people coming here, if you're trying to set up Islamic culture in America and have Sharia as the law that applies to anyone else, or even law within your own community, if any aspect of it violates any other law we have in this country, we're not okay with that. We're not going to do that. That's where we are on this issue in America today. So with that, I want a short clip from Rupert Lowe, the MP in the UK.
This report is over 200 pages long, and it goes into the root causes of probably the most extensive, widespread scandal that has ever beset Britain. It goes to every corner of the country. It's not in silos, it's everywhere. And it involves failure by the British establishment. And by the British establishment, I mean obviously government ministers, the civil service, local government, social services, the police, the judiciary, the NHS, and the media, who is supposed to be the guardian for the British people of scandals like this, but they've singularly failed to do that. The report goes into the reasons how it's happened. It goes into the reasons why it's happened, and that is all the reasons, and we analyze everything. I'm very grateful to all of the experts who appeared, all of the survivors who were brave enough to appear, all of my fellow MPs who came, and most of all to Graham Smith, who is the barrister who has produced this report with help from members of the inquiry team as well.
Okay, folks, you know, I started the show so positively. First of all, I want to back up and say, if you haven't listened to our show before, I thank you for tuning in today. The show is called America Can We Talk. You can find it online at americacanwetalk.org. You can follow me on Twitter at debbie-can-we-talk, at debbie-can-we-talk. And I used to do this show very regularly. As I mentioned at the start, I'm kind of getting back into doing it after a very, very busy period in my life where I just could not get down in the studio. And I will be doing more shows from home. I'm going to start doing more from home. But in any case, I do this show because I understand the duty of every generation of Americans to preserve and protect their country. I truly think America is the most unique and extraordinary gift to humanity that has ever existed on the planet Earth. The Declaration of Independence that we're celebrating at this 250th birthday is the single most important document in all of human history after the Bible. What it said about us, what it said about America, what it said about the country, what we believed and what we plan to start to do, all of that is it's why I do this show. So I dive into stories, and I start out very positive stories, and I want to kind of wrap up that to say, I just see in the many, many speaking engagements I have coming up, and the many I've done in the last, I don't even know how many years, there are literally millions of Americans who do love this country, who do see its goodness. And I urge us during this time of celebrating America 250 to ponder more deeply. Why is America great? How did it become so extraordinary? Because if we do understand that, if we ponder that and believe in that, we end up with a we end up strengthening our country, helping more people to see America's greatness, and we really help to push back against or diminish the efforts of the anti-American left that literally spends all their time, every Democrat who speaks to you, every Marxist, socialist, communist, Antifa type person who speaks to you only has one goal. It is to divide this country, to cause you to hate your country. That is the goal of that party. And so it's why I'm so deeply grateful that President Trump is in the White House at this time of America 250, that the celebrations are robust and strong and exciting, and they're not just, yay, America 250, and they explore deeply the greatness of America. It doesn't mean America is perfect, but it does mean we have worked and worked in this country to make America better and better, and we're still working on that. But I do this show, America Can We Talk, to celebrate America, to speak truth about America, because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.
Can you hear us now?